Harry Frost with a show called Fresh Air. Music a little different, music on records far from the ordinary. This thing happens each evening at this time, Monday through Friday, 7:30 till 8. And tonight we have a little surprise for you, so stick around, don't go away, because for the next 30 minutes we'll be filling the ozone with fresh air. So, once again, we're in business. Fresh Air, Harry Frost, Records. To start off, we have a record by the Rolf Erickson Group. They call themselves the Swingin' Swedes, and this is one dedicated to Miles Davis. It's called Miles Away. Rolf Erickson and the Swingin' Swedes, one called Miles Away, dedicated to Miles Davis, but it so happens that Miles is anything but miles away. He's sitting right here across the table from me. Miles, why don't you say hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hello. Miles, what do you say that we make a little historical thing out of this show tonight and delve a little into your background? Where were you born?
East St. Louis, Illinois.
Right across the river, huh?
Right.
So you're practically a St. Louis boy. Now, as I understand it, Miles, your father is a dentist.
Yeah, he's a doctor over in East St. Louis.
He's been practicing over there for about 20 years?
About 20.
And as I understand it, he's quite well respected in the community of East St. Louis and has a wonderful practice. And it was only natural that in Miles' formative years that the elder Davis expected Miles to become a dentist, but when the turning point came, when the crossroads presented themselves, well, I think we'll let Miles tell. What did your father say to you, Miles, about your future?
Well, everybody expected me to be a dentist. But he said, I told him that I wanted to go to Juilliard Institute.
Study
He
music.
said. Mm-hmm. So he said, well, whatever you be a good one.
Yeah. Well, I think we can safely say that Miles Davis has become a pretty good trumpet player. Not only a trumpet player, but a composer, but we'll get into that a little later. So, Miles, you were in New York studying at Juilliard, and as the story goes, you went up to the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem one night and heard a couple of fellows named Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. Now, how did those two boys affect you, your beliefs and your ideas about music?
Well, when I first heard them, they were here in St. Louis.
Oh, is that right?
They were playing at the Riviera with Bill Eckstein.
Oh, Gordon Dizzy together. That was in 1944, wasn't it?
45, 43. And I decided right there that I was going to New York so I could be around them.
Yeah, you dug what was happening, huh? Well, you went to New York and you enrolled at Juilliard. And how long were you at Juilliard, Miles? How long did you study there?
Oh, about 3 years.
And then let's finally arrive at the night you went to the Savoy Ballroom and you heard Dizzy and Bird again, right?
Yeah, they wasn't exactly at the ballroom. It was Three Deuces,
oh yeah. The street.
They had a jam station down there, so I used to go in every night after I found out that they were there.
Well, as we all know, you were quite attracted to the new music and decided that you were going to be one of the members of this new school of jazz. And as it turned out, not long after that meeting with Dizzy and Bird in New York, you made a record session with Charlie Parker for the Savoy label. What was the very first side you cut for Savoy, Miles?
I think it was Billy's Bounce.
Billy's Bounce?
Now's the Time.
That's right, on the same session, Now's the Time. And Now's the Time was later worked over, some words added, and it became the Hucklebuck. Is that right?
That's right.
Charlie Parker wrote the original riff, but he got nothing. Some other people cleaned up. That, of course, is a story that has happened more than once in music. It's a very uncertain business. Well, apparently the Savoy Record Company was quite impressed by the work you did, Miles, because a little later on they gave you a session under your own name. And what were some of the sides that you made on that later session?
Let's see, Milestones,
and
Donna, Little Willie Lee, and Sipping at Bell,
and Half Nelson.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back and catch this record of Milestones by Miles Davis trumpet, and Charlie Parker played tenor on this day, didn't he? So here it is, Miles Davis and Charlie Parker, Milestones. Miles Davis, one called Milestones. That was a record that Miles made with Charlie Parker back in, well, we're not quite sure of the date, but as long as Miles is here, we'll let him answer. Miles, when was that made?
About 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
46.
1946. Well, Miles, at this point, I would like to talk a little bit about the Juke Club in 9801 South Broadway. You know, that's a club down in South St. Louis. And at that club, they have a trio headed by John Cotter. You're probably familiar with John Cotter, aren't you?
John's a good friend of mine.
You heard the group?
Crazy group.
Isn't it? Real wonderful. They do a lot with three men, don't they? John Cotter, piano, Bill Moore, bass, and Jimmy Taylor, tenor sax and vocals. The amazing thing about Jimmy Taylor is that he sings well and he plays tenor sax
We used
well.
to work together.
With Jimmy, did you?
Yeah,
Wonderful fellow. isn't he?
Eddie Reynolds there.
Oh, yeah, the old Blue Devils, huh?
Yeah.
Well, so that place, the Juke Club, 9801 South Broadway. And let me tell you something. The trio is great, but so is the atmosphere. It's real informal, real relaxed. You'll like it. The room is done up in very lush style. And as you walk in, you'll see a couple of paintings done by Jimmy Taylor. You see, along with the singing and tenor saxing, he has other talents. Painting is one of them. In fact, Jimmy has promised to do a portrait of me in swimming trunks, and it's to appear on the cover of Physical Torture. So, but really, the Juke Club is a wonderful place, and if you haven't been down there yet, you got to make it. There's a personal recommendation from Miles Davis about the trio. It is really a fine group, isn't it, Miles?
Great group.
It really is. John Cotter, piano, Bill Moore, bass, Jimmy Taylor. And when you hear Jimmy sing, you'll hear something. So don't forget it. The Juke Club at 9801 South Broadway, but don't make it tonight because they're not open. Tomorrow night would be a fine night, any night, Wednesday through Sunday. The Juke Club at 9801 South Broadway. And at this time, I want to tell you that you're tuned to the show called Fresh Air. The guy called Harry Cross. We have records, and we have Miles Davis. So let's get back to the Miles Davis story. Miles, we just finished playing this record, Milestones, which you made with Charlie Parker. So let's move ahead with this story. It wasn't long after. That was made in 1947? 46. Well, of course, you stayed in New York most of the time, made a few more records. But in 1949, the big thing happened in the Miles Davis story because he got together with a couple of fellows named Gil Evans and Jerry Mulligan, and he wrote some real wonderful arrangements. Why don't you tell us about that, Miles? How that thing happened?
Well, we wanted to get a different sound. Probably close to Clark Darnell's sound, all as bad as we possibly could.
Well, you had the right man because you had Gil Evans, one of Clark's old arrangers. And as I understand it, you spent a lot of afternoons in Gil's apartment working out these different arrangements.
All night and every day.
Oh, yeah. And of course, the resulting products came out on Capitol Records, such things as Godchild, Jeru, and what were some of the others, Miles?
That hasn't been released. The Jeru.
And what was the name? Udo, yeah.
Moo.
Oh, yeah, that was the one.
Venus de Milo.
Uh-huh.
See what else? Oh, I can't think of
A couple of things which had never been released.
John That Dream.
Yeah, that was on the other side of the Jerry Mulligan thing. That was the last thing they released, and I can't think of the name of it.
Did they release Rouge? They released it, yeah.
No. But they did release Godchild, so let's play that one right now. Miles Davis with 9 men, including tuba and French horn, a thing called Godchild. And that was the Miles Davis group, the one that made those wonderful signs for Capitol, a thing called Godchild. Miles, you took that group into the Royal Roost in New York City, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was in 1949. And who did you have with you on that job?
Let's see, Jerry Mulligan, Max Roach, John Lewis, Aaron McKibben on bass.
Lee Conant sounded
Lee
right.
Conant playing alto. Bill Barber was playing tuba. Jimmy was playing French horn. J.J. was playing trombone.
Did you have J.J. on trombone?
Trombone.
Max on drums. Was John Lewis on piano?
Yeah, he's playing piano.
Wonderful musician. He did some of the writing for the group.
He did move.
Now this next record, Hallucinations, it came out on Capitol under the title Butto. You want to explain that title, Miles?
Well, it's named after Bud.
Bud Powell.
Bud Powell.
And he wrote it, didn't he?
Yes, he wrote a little bit.
Oh, did you add some of the things that we hear in there?
Well, he wrote the first 4 bars. After that.
After that is Miles. Well, it could be called Butto, it could be called Miles, for that matter, but the title on this label reads Hallucinations. In 1949, Miles Davis, the Royal Roost, a thing called Hallucinations. At this point, Miles, I'd like to talk about another one of my sponsors. You see, I have 2 sponsors, the Juke Club and the Baldwin Piano Company in 916 Allen. Miles, since being back in town, I don't know if you've been down to the Baldwin Piano Company or not, but I'll tell you something. You have a very wonderful stock of records down there, a lot of jazz. If you were to walk in there, Miles, and up to the end of the counter, you'd go through this rack, and you'd see records by George Shearing, You'd see records by Stan Kenton. You might even see a couple of records by Miles Davis with your own picture smeared all over the cover.
Oh, good.
Good. Seriously, they have quite a few Miles Davis LPs on at the Baldwin Piano Company, and they have lots of other wonderful prints. So if you haven't been down there yet, I would suggest that you make it down there very soon. They're open Monday and Thursday till 9. The record department is on the first floor, which means all you have to do is walk in and you're there. You're in business. You'll find yourself surrounded by lots of wonderful records. That's the Baldwin Piano Company, the Baldwin Record Department, 916 Alabama. You might remember this. For the latest and best in records, it's always Baldwin's. So back to Miles. Not too long ago, Miles, you cut a session for Blue Note. When was that?
It was about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Well, this came out recently. I was under the impression that they were cut a little later than that. However, you have cut another session since then, haven't you?
Yeah, we made a session about 6 months ago.
Those sides haven't been released yet.
Yeah, they're released.
Well, by virtue of necessity, we'll have to go back to the sides which were released, the ones which you made 2 years ago. This was a record group which included J.J. Johnson,
J.J. and Gilly Collins, playing piano. And I think Kenny Clark was on there.
Yeah, Kenny Clark was the drummer. Who was on piano?
Gilly Collins.
Oh, he was the piano man. Okay. Well, let's hear it. It's a thing written by one of Miles's idols, Dizzy. It's called Wouldn't You? Miles Davis with a Dizzy Gillespie composition, Wouldn't You? And that just about wraps up this Miles Davis edition of Fresh Air. It's been exactly that, 30 minutes of fresh air, music on record, words by Harry Frost. And we've had as a special guest this evening, Miles Davis. Miles is in town for a little vacation. He's been resting out at his father's farm. And don't forget, Miles, you've invited me out. I'm going to be there.
Sure.
Yeah, like these big, he talks about a breakfast that you won't believe. Steaks and eggs, bacon, everything you could possibly want. So count me in. You've got yourself a date. So Miles, thanks a lot for making it tonight. And you might tell the rest of you that we'll be back tomorrow evening at 7:30. Until then, thanks a lot for listening and so long. Station KXLW.